This concept that the consumer journey, if you will, or the way that brands engage with consumers between the brick and mortar space and the digital spaces should be split. I think that is a fundamental myth. And I think the data continues to tell us that consumers are now cross-shopping, if you will. But consumers, again, are demanding this thought process of like an omnichannel experience.
Welcome to the Frictionless Experience, the podcast where we lay waste to digital friction. I'm Chuck Moxley.
And I'm Nick Paladino.
Today, we're going to be talking to Chayse Joubert, Senior Director of Digital Transformation Strategy. He's worked in project management and agile transformation, and he's a dynamic leader in that field of digital transformation and customer experience. He's worked on some iconic brands, including currently driving innovation at the Fossil Group, and he's held senior roles in digital commerce and marketing at McCormick & Company, Whole Foods, and grocery retailer H-E-B. Chayse, welcome to the Frictionless Studio.
Thanks, Chuck. Thanks, Nick. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me on.
And before we actually get into this, though, I want to take a minute and be the first show Monday morning to have an Alabama alumni and an SMU alumni chatting about what just happened. Congratulations, honestly. I think it was the right choice.
Thanks. I appreciate it. I actually had an opportunity to go to the ACC championship game on Saturday. And yeah, it was against Clemson. So we came up a little short, which is unfortunate, but it was really just great to see how the culture of SMU football has shifted. It looks a lot different than the way that it looked when I played a few years ago. So shout out to, Coach Lashley and just the rest of the SMU football staff. Those guys are crushing it. And as much as I like Alabama, I love my Mustangs. So we appreciate the well wishes, Nick. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a great story. And what I like to say about the Clemson game specifically, the first 5 minutes, unfortunately, SMU gave 14 points on 60 yards. You stop that. Otherwise, SMU dominates the game.
For sure. Yeah, it was, there were a few of us, that played before that had a chance to sit together. And, when you reminisce about big games that you played in versus the way that these kids really handled adversity, they fought and never quit. A lot of opportunities I have to kind of talk about the correlation between like sports and just like life in general. One of the things that you learn how to do as an athlete is like fight and overcome adversity. And so it was really just incredible to see that on display on one of the biggest stages in the world at that particular time. So again, just really excited about what's to come. Really encouraged that we'll get a chance to play Penn State in a couple of weeks. I don't think a matchup to that magnitude is happening for us in a really long time. So again, we're just like really excited to see where it goes this year, and then looking to see how that catapults us into success in the future too. So you're just really excited. It's a great time to be a Mustang.
How cool. And honestly, I knew I was going to come in and sideswipe Chuck by asking this question without him knowing, but I didn't know what I was going to get greeted with was that you were a former athlete. And I really do believe in what you're saying. Student athletes know how to overcome adversity, and that really prepares a lot of people for the workplace. And we're seeing that with you right now. This is awesome.
And just for those who might not be football fans like me, and I'm saying I'm not a football fan, or B, the fact that we record this like 3 months in advance, can we just clarify what game you're talking about?
Oh, for sure.
No one will forget about this, but yeah, go ahead, Chayse.
So today is December 9th. And this past weekend, my SMU Mustangs played the Clemson Tigers in the ACC championship. We were down, I want to say, maybe 21 points going into the fourth quarter.
It was a little excessive, but I don't think it was 21, but it was a big comeback for sure for SMU to tie it up at the end.
So fought back. Stormed back, tied the game up. Right? Clemson made a big play. Really two big plays on special teams to close the game out. We lose by 3. And this is also the first year of a 12-team playoff for the college football championship. And because we lost the game, the final decision for like the final seed came down to SMU and then the powerhouse that is Alabama. And fortunately for us, the committee decided to give us an opportunity to go to the playoff, which again is just it's monumental for our university and for our program. And so I feel like I'm a coach right now, but it's, proud alum on several factors, right? Proud alum just as an SMU alum, very proud alum as a prior collegiate athlete at SMU, and just hoping that in the next couple of weeks we get to take care of business at Penn State and then see where we go from there. So that's what's going on right now. I'm hoping that when this does air, we are holding up the banner as national champions. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Well, hey, from your lips to God's ears.
Yeah, for sure, 1000%.
All right, so let's talk about Fossil for a moment, and that's where you are currently. And Fossil is known for watches, correct?
That's right.
Tell us about your role there, because you're like head of digital transformation. Talk about what your role is and what you and your team are working on there.
So I lead digital transformation and strategy, and really in my wheelhouse, there's four primary subcategories of work that take place, if you will. There is a true digital strategy and analytics role where we spend dedicated time on just digging into the data, digging into the trends, really seeking to understand what's happening in the market from like a research and development standpoint. And then also seek to understand, although technologies and capabilities may be trending, are they the right fit for Fossil Group and the goals and strategies that we have set in place? So that's one piece. There's also a program management piece of our team that is more so accountable for, once we've defined a strategy and once we've defined the capability set that we want to implement for the organization, how do we really hold ourselves accountable for ensuring that not only is the project being implemented on time, but then from a financial perspective, are we holding ourselves accountable to the financial commitments that we've made to the organization? Because some of that, those funds ladder up to the overall P&L, and we want to make sure that we are holding ourselves accountable and delivering that continuous value to the organization. That's the second piece. The third component is project management. So again, and I'll kind of talk about a little more of a simplistic framework here in a sec, but the third portion of our work is project management. And that's really focused on, exactly what it sounds like. Once we identify our strategies, we identify the priorities for the year, we have an excellent group of project managers on our team that help us soup to nuts really implement the project and technologies themselves. And I can't tell you just how proud I am of that team, particularly this year, where, there was a lot of things that took place, a lot of times where we had to pivot, make adjustments. And they did a wonderful job at really helping us to identify when we would be able to deliver certain technologies and capabilities that ultimately led to us having a successful year in that space. So really proud of the work that team did. And then the last portion, last but not least, is agile transformation. So really kind of taking a step back and identifying how can we, as not necessarily only a digital team, but as Fossil Group, the larger scale organization, really go faster and become more efficient in the way that we approach that is a task and work. The way that you guys will hear me talk about this collective process during our time together today is called our strategic growth planning process. And that is how, again, we start things off with more of a situation assessment. We give the organization an opportunity to respond to those data points via business cases. We then go through a process of prioritization and capacity planning. And then ultimately we create and hold ourselves accountable to our largest deliverable of the year, which we call our digital roadmap. And that's really how we identify, again, key strategies, core capabilities that we want to implement, the teams that will be impacted by those, and the financial commitments that we'll make. We seek these approvals all the way up through our executive leadership team and board of directors. And then again, from a program management perspective and project management perspective, we really work to implement and hold ourselves accountable to those goals over the course of the year. So I've really enjoyed the 2 years I've been at Fossil. I have learned a tremendous amount and really look forward to what the future holds.
So I can't remember, Nick, has it ever come up? I know we've talked to guests about this, but I can't remember if it was after we stopped recording or while we were recording about your love of watches. Have we ever had that conversation?
We haven't gotten too deep into it. No, it came up during one of the Creator House episodes, but I don't think we've actually released that one live yet. Maybe by the time we've released this one live, will have, but it's such a weird sequencing of events. But no, I'm a big watch guy, Chuck.
Yeah, and you have your for those who are watching the video, is that can we see any of them in the background or?
There are several. I have to tilt it, but there are several right over there.
You can see part of his collection there, a small part of your collection, as I recall. The bigger part's on the other side, right?
By count, those are the ones that I consider my main watches over that I just showed you. So there's there are multiple tiers in watches. As those that aren't familiar in the world, it gets a little excessive.
And Chase, were you a watch guy before you joined Fossil?
So I've always been interested in watches because I think that just from a fashion standpoint, I think a solid watch is kind of like the chef's kiss to to your outfit, to the way that you really approach the day. Now, I didn't necessarily get into like the technical aspects of watches then the way I more so understand them now. And but I will say, like, I've always enjoyed a good watch. I'm very biased now. I think Fossil makes the best watch on the market. So if you're watching this and you have not purchased the Fossil watch, take my word for it. Go shop our store, shop our website, take a look. Shameless plug, right? But yeah, I've always liked watches. I just have more of a just a respect for the craft and just what they mean to people in general now.
I completely agree with you about watches completing an outfit. Also, for men, it's often one of the only ways to accessorize. Like I wear a bracelet and I wear an extra ring on on my ring finger. I wear a ring on each side. That's abnormal. And so for many men, it's the way to kind of show it. It also says something like what you choose to wear. If you choose to wear a field watch versus a dive watch versus an Apple watch, you're saying something. And even an Apple watch says, hey, I'm a techie and I want to be really in tune with my technology at all times. And that's perfectly fine. But when you're able to get into something like what I call my favorite brand is Hamilton, actually. And I feel like they represent American history. They represent a storied understanding of ruggedness. And that's really where a lot of my watch love comes from is the story and the history that I get to wear on my wrist at any one time. And it becomes a conversation piece. Now, Chase, wrist check. What are you wearing?
So I thought that you would ask. So I actually I pulled out my favorite timepiece, and I'll kind of show this to you guys. I don't know if you can see it very well on the camera or not, but this is a machine smoke stainless steel watch. It was a Fossil brand, of course, but this watch has a lot of significance for me. So it's really special to me, and it's the reason why I chose to wear it today. This was actually one of the best parts about working for Fossil, one of the many benefits, is that you're gifted a watch when you join the organization. And when I first joined Fossil, I had an opportunity to really pick my choice of what I wanted and what would almost represent me from a day-to-day perspective. And this is the one that I chose. And I think it's a beautiful piece. I like the big face on the watch. I really thoroughly enjoy the color. I think that it does pretty well from a sales perspective, but it's just something that means a lot to me because this was really the first piece that I bought as a Fossil employee. So yeah, I was really loving my watch. I wear it daily, just about. So it's my thing.
Yeah, and that's going to have history. That's going to mean exactly that forever. It doesn't matter whatever else you collect. Nothing will replace the meaning you just said. I'm actually wearing a Timex that has an Alabama logo on it. And I realized halfway through this conversation, I chose the wrong watch. So I silently went over, I grabbed it, and I was like, I gotta put the Alabama logo on.
Yeah. It's an awesome watch.
It is. It is. Like, what can I say?
Now, selfishly, right? Again, I think that just where we are today, being with my teammates, being around, fellow alumni, it just gave me a chance to really take a step back this weekend. It's like, man, I got to go to, in my personal opinion, the best university in Dallas. And I had an opportunity to work for one of the best organizations in Dallas as well. So we don't necessarily have an SNU fossil watch yet. But now that you showed me that one from Alabama, Nick, I might have to, shoot a couple of emails out to see if we can get something done.
I guess it's smart that they let you pick a watch when you join there, because wouldn't it have been embarrassing if you had a, I don't know, a Timex or some other brand on when he asked that question?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, 100%. We do, I think, a really solid job as a company in making sure people have access to the goods. So, but yeah, I mean, you guys know, right? Like in retail, part of your ability to tell good stories is to really confirm your belief in the product, right? So it'd be really tough for me just because of my beliefs and because of who I am as a person and what I stand for, to come to work every day and work for an organization that positioned products that I didn't believe in. And so, part of my process and part of my journey when I was looking for an additional role and having discussions with the incredible Fossil, leadership team was I wanted to be a part of something that I continue to believe in. And that's been true, with every stop I've had along the way, but really resonates with the products that we sell at Fossil Group. So, yeah, it's a really just great product and something I'm really appreciative to be a part of.
Chase, that resonates really well with me. And I've said this before on this podcast, but it's so appropriate right now. One of the things that helped me succeed at Home Depot was being my own customer. And I think that is something that a lot of people ignore when they are creating something, is they don't start with their own customer, whatever it may be, especially when you get larger companies, right? You can go be a cog in a wheel and it's really easy to forget, hey, let me just go shop on my own experience. Let me go buy my own watch. In my case, it was, let me go check the special buy of the day because I'm a hobby woodworker. Let me go make sure there's not a good tool that's on sale. I would do that every single day. And because I was always shopping on my own experience, I would be able to say, hey, wait, this didn't function the way it probably should have. Let's dive in. Let's go figure out what went wrong. One thing led to the next, and all of a sudden I was part of product management with a revenue responsibility. And so that kind of passion to actually believe in your product matters no matter what you do.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, 1000%, especially in this role that I'm in today. I do spend a lot of time at the stores. I shouldn't say a lot. I spend more time in the stores in this role than I've spent maybe in other roles. And one of the reasons why is because I do work in digital, and I have spent a lot of my career in digital. One of the pieces I want to really make sure like I fully grasp and understand is really this concept of like omni-channel. That's not necessarily a concept that or a project or a capability that I put together and then present and try to implement. But I really want to make sure I'm understanding like the full end-to-end consumer experience. And so, yeah, I'll spend time in the stores, talking to our store teams, understanding how, their experience is based off the programs and projects and capabilities that we implement, and really seeking to understand, are we doing the right thing for not only, the digital team, but are we doing the right thing for, most importantly, the consumer? Are we doing the right thing, implementing the right capabilities for our team members in the store? Are we making their lives easier? Are we positioning them to drive more conversions? And so I think, really spending time around the product and really immersing yourself into those experiences, I think it does. I mean, tremendous. It brings tremendous amounts of value to your ability to process information and make decisions. So, yeah, Nick, I agree with you there 1000%.
Yeah, and something else you said that's a really nice thing to focus on is making employees have a more seamless time or more frictionless time to satisfy their job creates better customer experiences. That's a profound little wrap up there.
So, Chase, not every company has a head of digital innovation. Talk about why Fossil hired you, why they prioritize digital innovation during these times.
So I think Fossil, like a lot of other leading organizations, really understands and values the benefit of this concept of true omni-channel strategy and true omni-channel capability building. And the way that I really like to discuss and drive this point home is by, really articulating the fact that, consumer engagement and the way that a consumer engages with product has fundamentally shifted over the past few years. There's no longer this concept of, brick and mortar versus digital. Everything is omnichannel. And when you take a look at some of the more successful organizations and successful products globally, the way that they approach consumer engagement is by having discussions with these consumers more so holistically. In the simplest form, it's really about meeting the right consumer at the right time, with the right product set in the proper channel, and really ensuring that we do have the adequate content prepared to offer up that experience. And so I think the reason, again, just to reconfirm that, the reason why Fossil Group is really taking this stance is because the data, the analysis, the consumer engagement, the industry trends have all really said the same thing. But I think we took rather a bullish approach to ensuring that, like, we would be where the consumer needed us to be in order to drive that, again, consumer engagement, to drive those conversions, and really position ourselves for not only short-term success, but long-term sustainability as well.
Yeah, I would think that watches are one of those interesting products in that while I can buy them in person, and you guys, just for clarity, you guys have your own stores, and then can you not also buy Fossil products in, I don't know, Macy's or other stores as well?
Yeah. So we have a direct to consumer business. We have a wholesale business, which is more of that B2B concept. But we've also expanded our capability set, right? So we are heavily engaged in marketplaces as well. So, as well as social media. So, again, the notion of meeting consumers where they are and really, again, continuing to position the right product to the right consumer at the right time is really the core of what we're doing from an omnichannel perspective. Really ensuring that we are making ourselves visible, but also having like the right amount of visibility to a consumer set that may want to engage with you in various ways. So yeah, I mean, to answer your question in short, Chuck, we are in all of the major channels that we need to participate in to drive that consumer engagement and discoverability. We're there.
The thing about watches that strikes me as interesting is there's some products that you might argue are tougher to buy online. Shoes, clothing, certain things that you kind of want to try on cars, that you want to drive. I think the great thing about watches are you can actually, like, if you're in a store, it's hard you can feel it, you can touch it, but you can't study, you can't check out reviews, you can't, like, in an e-commerce environment, you can really zoom in and compare two or three different colors and models and all that kind of stuff. It seems like it would lend itself well to an e-commerce purchase, or a phygital, as we talk about both physical and digital, where you might shop it online and then you go in a store to buy, or you see it in the store and you go online and make the ultimate purchase.
I agree. Again, 1000%. I think one of the approaches that we've taken to just digital commerce in general, and I mean, I've spoken on a couple panels about this. I've done some other podcasts about this, but it really is a passion point for me. Is this concept of digital shelf excellence, right? And digital shelf excellence completely correlates to this thought process that the consumer is no longer shopping single channels. Once you as a brand or as a retailer have gained the trust and the time of a consumer, the notion and the strategy and one of the pieces that you work on the most is really ensuring that, one, they have a great experience when they're in your experience, but then also when they leave either your website or leave your physical store, how do you give them the ability and opportunity to engage with you outside of that one instance? And I think that's where the omni-channel strategy really comes into play. So, Chuck, you mentioned this concept of standing in a physical store, but then checking the website to look at ratings and reviews and other color swatches and things of that nature. I think that is e-com 101 for us. And every journey that I've been in over the course of my career, that's one of the things that I drive extremely hard to implement because it's very powerful. I mean, think about the last purchase that you made where you may have been on the fence on, making this purchase for whatever reason. There's likely a couple things that you did. You either picked up the phone, or if you're standing in a physical store or almost in digital stores at this point, you either asked a question to an in-store rep to either validate that this was the right purchase for you or gain additional information. Or from a digital perspective, there's an opportunity now to engage with like bots who kind of give this concierge type service to answer those questions. You may have reached out to someone that was close to you or someone that you knew that purchased that same product or a similar one to help validate if this was the right purchase for you, or you went directly to the website and you looked at trusted resources, which are other consumers that are not necessarily brand biased, to help you determine if this was like the proper product for you as an individual consumer. And so that to me has been like this nucleus of touch points, if you will, is again econ 101, is digital shelf 101. And as simple as it may sound by using that phrase, it is pivotal to the success of all brands when looking to bridge the gap and meet consumers where they want to be. So sorry to go off on a little bit of a tangent there, but I think you hit something that is really important. And I think we're moving towards this place as a fashion industry now where a lot of people are starting to get it because they have to. But I mean, if you look at some of the more successful brands and some of the more successful retailers, that is a discipline that is being executed at a very high level.
So you mentioned social as a channel, and I know there's been a lot of interest in that. Have you guys seen success in people actually purchasing on a social platform? Is it available? Can they actually make the purchase, or do they still come over to your e-commerce site? And what have you experienced in that area?
Yeah, yeah. So we have the ability to do both. I will say, I think last year around this time when I first joined Fossil Group, we actually had a really honest and just great debate around what the consumer experience should be when consumers are engaging with us on social media. And the other part that gets really fun about working in our space is there can be a concept that you want to implement, but then there's also a reality to where the technology is at that given time. And so in today's environment for fossil products, we give you the ability to do both, but it is platform dependent. So there are some platforms where you can purchase directly, within the app itself. And there are some platforms that don't necessarily have that capability built out, where we deep link you back to a dedicated landing page on our website. And that's by design. And again, a lot of that is based on, what the intent, what we understand the consumer intent to be when engaging with us in those platforms versus the technical capabilities of our partners at the current state, versus what is being worked on their roadmaps. So to answer your question in short, Chuck, we offer a little bit of both, but we partner really closely with our vendor community to ensure that we are up to date and on par and on task with whatever developments are taking place at that time.
And I'm not sure in my notes how recently this was, but at some point you all launched 65 localized websites within a single year. Talk about that and what the challenges were and why and how you accomplished that.
Again, one of the first projects that I took on when I joined Fossil Group was this thought process of global site expansion. And everything that we do as an organization is based on the consumer. So we are a consumer centric, consumer enthusiastic organization that really wants to deliver a best in class experience. And we were receiving, numerous, inquiries and just requests from our consumers across the globe around wanting to purchase our product. As we went through the analysis to understand what it would take to offer that many websites globally, within the current infrastructure at that time, the return on the investment was challenged. So we set out on this journey to understand how could we quickly turn up these websites but that would also maintain brand integrity and really the promise that we make to our consumers when they purchase products from us. And so we partnered with a cross-border vendor that really, and that vendors globally, which really enabled us to stand up, a pretty significant amount of websites in a relatively short amount of time. And what I'll tell you is that, business performance has been pretty solid through these websites. The implementation process was just what you would expect with a large scale project like that one. It touched every single part of our organization. And I mean, every single part. There was no stone that was unturned. I learned more about Fossil Group and the product assortment and the ways of working, the supply chain, the accounting, the whole nine. And this time frame than I ever thought that I would learn over the course of my over the course of my career here. but I do think in hindsight, it's probably one of the more beneficial projects that I've worked on, in my career, because it did give me ability to deep dive into every facet of the business and really understand the impacts that the project and the strategies that we were implementing were having across the larger organization. So we're live now. If you look at fossil.com, if you look at michelle.com, if you look at Zodiac and watchstation.com, we have now several websites that consumers across the globe can engage with and actually have products delivered to their homes once they order. So it's something that we are really proud of that we were able to stand up this year.
So it sounds to me like the hardest part of hitting this is the logistics of delivering the item, right? Did that mean that you had to have a global delivery network as well?
We went through several iterations, Nick, on our global delivery strategy. And, we ultimately needed to make a decision that positioned us for speed, but not necessarily speed to the detriment of operational efficiencies. And so, yeah, I mean, the logistics component was one of it. But I think when you kind of start to get into global expansion, there are financial pieces that you need to account for. There are accounting components that need to be executed flawlessly. There are legal aspects. Laws on goods shift, I mean, tremendously across different countries globally. So that was something else that we learned. There's also messaging laws that are out there. Like there are certain terms that you can use in the United States that you can't use in other places. And that was also like a pretty significant learning. The logistics piece was one facet of it. But again, when I tell you guys that project, our site extension project touched literally every facet of our organization. I mean it. And there were, things that we learned. There were pivots that we had to make. There were trade-offs that also needed to be made. But ultimately, I mean, we made the best decisions for Fossil Group, the organization. And, these benefits and that implementation is now benefiting our customers.
Awesome. Let's go back to HEB and your work there, because one of the things that you told us when we were chatting with you before was that digital transformation is more than just technology. We've talked a lot about the technology, but it's also about connecting the business goals and innovative tools. Talk about how you translated those technical concepts into business outcomes, and maybe even touch on your project management theories that you talked about earlier.
So going back to my days at HEB, that role was really my true introduction into e-commerce. And I think the best part about that job, and again, there were a lot of incredible parts. There were a lot of incredible people there. And, I think HEB is a world-class organization for sure. I think the best part about it is we literally built the website and e-commerce and omnichannel strategy at that point from soup to nuts. I mean, literally beginning to end. And there were days where, we were triaging and really, testing and learning and understanding consumer engagement. And so we really, for my personal journey, I think that was one of the more critical roles in my career because it really gave me a true understanding of how it's supposed to work. We went through several iterations of the site. We went through several iterations of what we wanted to stand for. For anybody that is listening now in Texas, the curbside experience was really built from this concept of bringing brick and mortar concepts to life in the digital space. And HEB had built a tremendous reputation with the consumer set on offering excellence from every aspect of the shopping experience. And so we were tasked with understanding what that meant and what that was supposed to look like for digital. And so a lot of my time in the early days was spent just learning the business, being transparently with our category managers, with our buyers, with our operational teams. And then once we got to a point to where we could really start to contribute, moving away from this concept of like, hey, what do you want to offer on the website? But moving into a place where we could really drive the business and implement, again, true omnichannel strategies and defining what omnichannel meant for the organization. Then we were able to start to really make a difference and really drive the business and really be seen as like partners in that space. So that was, again, very pivotal moment in my career, very pivotal role in my career, and it taught me a tremendous amount. And kind of going back to just like the approach, I would say from a project management perspective at HEB, and this is something that I've taken with me over the course of my career, as you were defining and implementing these transformative strategies and capabilities, it was very important and pivotal to the success of all projects to clearly define our North Star, what we were looking to accomplish, what our requirements were, the timelines that we were looking to implement to get these things done. And then also, again, continuing to really hold ourselves accountable to not only the implementation of the capability itself, but to the financial commitments that we were making to gain the buy-in of the executive leadership teams. And so, that just has been something that has stuck with me over the course of my career. And now that I do manage a project management team, I mean, we take that a step deeper. We continue to have triage calls, and we continue to have ongoing status updates. We continue to just really ensure that we are sinking our teeth into these projects and immersing ourselves into the work to ensure that we can deliver a high quality product for the organization and for the consumer alike. So each experience that I have had over the course of my journey, I think has stacked on top of each other. And my goal has always been to attempt to learn something new, right? To bring value to where I am, but then to also like learn a new skill set to continue to broaden my horizon and make myself as valuable as possible.
So, Chase, what's a widely held belief about frictionless digital experiences that you fundamentally disagree with? You think that people get wrong?
For sure. Yeah. So I think there are two key ones. The first one, I think, is this concept that the consumer journey, if you will, or the way that brands engage with consumers between the brick and mortar space and the digital spaces should be split. I think that is a fundamental myth. And I think the data continues to tell us that consumers are now cross shopping, if you will. But consumers, again, are demanding this thought process of like an omnichannel experience. And so I've hit that point a few times today, but I think, even in other forums that I've been in at this point, there's still a narrative that, well, this consumer only shops this way, but there's continuous data and even continuous day-to-day activity that debunks that. Consumers now want to be met in whatever experience they're in with holistic solutions and holistic immersive experiences that give them access to either the answers or the tools or the products that they're looking for. So I think that's one. The second one is one that I think at this day and age is a little bit of a hotter topic. And that is this concept that, Gen AI is going to replace all people, all roles everywhere. And I fundamentally just do not agree with that. The way that I approach the thought process of Gen AI is it is a tool like every other tool that we have in our toolkits. And I think that the more that we accept that as truth and learn how to actually leverage the technology for our benefits, not only from a personal gain perspective, but from a business perspective as well, the more effective that we'll be in our day-to-day accountabilities and just life in general. So that's also a hot button that I've heard quite a bit. And one thing I was just, for anybody that will listen, another one that I want to debunk. Gen AI is not here to replace. It's really here to enhance. And the technology is moving so quickly that, especially right now, if you're able to really rationalize that and start to use the technology for what it's worth, it'll give you more time back in your day. It'll give you more time back in your life. And it does really help to deliver greater business value.
I always think of that cartoon where a guy gets thrown out of the window. And it's like a meme. It's a common meme, and it's like a boardroom, and the guy's yelling at everybody and like, somebody give me Gen AI. And then the one guy is what you just said, and then he gets thrown out of the window. But it feels like that's the answer. Like that's the answer everybody needs is slow down with Gen AI being this like magical answer. So I love what you're saying, but oh, man, does it feel like the executive rooms don't agree?
Yeah, it's again, it's a really hot button right now. I think, when the technology was first, or when it first boomed, maybe, early 2020 or mid-year 2023, I think in a lot of scenarios, it was identified as like a silver bullet to every problem. And a lot of large scale organizations went and started developing this technology and investing, I mean, incredible sums of resources and funds to build it out. I think the gap was that there was a concept of what it was supposed to do. There was technology being developed to attack the or resolve these high level, thought processes and concepts and ideas. But the true reality was that there needed to be use cases and business value associated to the implementation of these tools. And so I think where we are today as just an industry is that some of these use cases have really been thought of as low hanging fruit, and implementations have really proven out that ROI. The implementations have proven and have shown that you do get more time back in the day. You can be more efficient and you can drive greater business value by leveraging these tools. So it is something that I've spent a lot of time, especially in my current role, analyzing and working through and implementing and analyzing the results from. But yeah, I don't want to stand on the soapbox on that one for too long. But that is a myth to debunk 1,000%.
It's interesting. Both of your points, in a way, go back to unreasonable expectations by people who are not in the know. Like, I wonder, on your point about e-commerce being a true omni-channel, is there still a myopic look from exec teams sometimes looking at, well, how much revenue did you drive through the e-commerce channel, not understanding the impact that it has on the direct channel and indirect channels as well?
Yeah, I think so. But I think that's why it's really important for leaders in the digital space to be able to articulate the value from a P&L perspective of like what you're bringing to the table. I think we can all do a really good job at potentially selling these things in and getting opportunities to go off and do projects and things of that nature. But I think where the value comes from is being able to directly point to the results of what you have delivered through the implementation of these tools, right? Like, are the efficiency gains that you can share? Are there true dollars that you can share pre and post that really do a nice job at articulating, again, before we had this whatever in place, this was our current experience and this is what we were driving. Post project implementation, post strategy implementation, now that this is available to us, this is what we're able to do now. This is what we were able to drive. And, it's not as simple as that, right? But I do think continuing to come back and showcase, again, like the value that you are delivering through the work will continue to give you more opportunities for other capabilities or for other developments or even for building maturity models within the capability set that you've now delivered. So yeah, got to continue to kind of come back and showcase your wins and continue to tell the stories.
So I'm one of the few people, maybe the only person, who wears two watches at a given time. So I have my good watch on one hand. I have and by the way, I just got an Apple Watch, Nick, I went all in on Apple. So
because
I
you're
got the Apple
so
Watch
in tune
for
with the technology,
Black
right?
Friday. Yes, exactly. Exactly. So I was coming back. We were in Dallas last week for Thanksgiving, and I was coming back and on the flight, and you're dealing with stuff in your bag and we had checked bags. So I'm taking stuff off. I get in the car and this watch is gone, completely gone. My nice watch. And I'm like, oh crap, what happened? I couldn't figure it out. So anyway, I was going to file a claim with the airline, have go search, but I decided to search my bag and I found it. Apparently at one point putting something in my bag or taking out the clasp loose enough, it fell off and I didn't realize it had fallen off. So thank goodness I still have it.
Oh man, at a product level, the first thing my brain goes, this shows how much of a watch nerd I am. But what kind of clasp is that? That's the first thing that my brain. I'm not actually asking. You don't actually.
That's the first thing. That's the first thing my wife asked me. Like, do you need to adjust that if that's going to fall off that easily?
It's hilarious.
So, anyway, great story. Hey, Chayse, this is a great conversation. So much gold in this. I feel like we could talk for a whole nother hour, but obviously we need to wrap. How can people find you? What's the best way to connect with you if they want to get in touch?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. Just searching my name, Chayse, Chayse, Joubert, Joubert. Send me a request and would love to connect.
Gotcha. All right. Well, this is awesome. For everybody listening, thanks for joining us, and be sure to like us on your favorite podcast app so you're notified each time we have a new episode drop. If you've not signed up for our newsletter, do that, because I'm sure we will take one of the topics that came on this conversation and go a lot deeper on it in our newsletter next week. So be sure to sign up for the newsletter at thefrictionlessexperience.com, and you'll get sort of the deeper dive on some of these topics. And as always, you can connect with me and Nick on LinkedIn. I'm at Chuck Moxley.
And I'm at in Paladino. What a cool conversation with Chayse from Fossil. I mean, how often do we get to geek out about watches with someone who actually works at a watch company? I love that.
As you would, Nick, given your love of watches. And, I got to say, it was perfect timing given his SMU football background, given what just happened with the playoffs. I love also how he brought that athlete's mindset of overcoming adversity into his business approach.
Absolutely. And I love that a lot. I'm super passionate about the athletic mentality and what it means in the business place, because it really helps a lot of people succeed. But on the note of the college playoff, now that we're recording the recap, we do actually have the recap of the game too. And unfortunately, SMU came up a little bit short, but so did Alabama, getting absolutely smashed by Michigan. So we have no leg to stand on to say that the decision was wrong. I still think they got it right.
You guys ended up in the same place, I guess.
That's exactly right. Losing. His insights on digital transformation, though, they were spot on. That was not losing. I particularly liked his pushback on two common myths: that digital and physical retail should be separate, and that Gen AI is going to replace everyone. Really practical perspective on both.
True. And what he shared about launching 65 localized websites in a year was fascinating. I mean, it wasn't just about the technology. It touched everything from logistics to legal requirements to messaging laws in different countries. Really shows how complex digital transformations can be.
Yeah, and his passion is just obvious. When he's meeting with customers, whether it's in stores, online, on social media, it doesn't really matter for him. The whole concept of digital shelf experience also really resonated with me.
All right, so speaking of watches, let's do a wrist check. What are you wearing today?
Well, right now I got my Hamilton Frogman 41 on, one of my favorite ones. During the episode that we recorded, I was wearing just a Timex with the Alabama logo on it. That was a lot of fun to be able to rib about SMU with him. But today this is my everyday watch, my Hamilton.
Nice. I have my two as usual. Thank goodness I didn't lose this one on that Dallas trip.
And my first thought about this was what kind of clasp it had. But seriously, great guest, great insights on omnichannel retail and digital transformation.